Well, hello, bom dia for those in Brazil, and dobry večer to those in Russia, and well, good morning to, or good evening to everybody else. There are 11 time zones in Russia, so I feel like I could say good afternoon and good evening and good night, and it would work for everybody. So welcome to this latest edition of the webinar series that's being promoted by our graduate program here at the Federal University of Paraná in Curitiba, Brazil, Universidade Federal do Paraná. This webinar series called in Portuguese, Conversa sobre Linguagens, Culturas e Identidades, is a webinar series that focuses on exactly those things, language, culture, and identity, different issues. And in this new series, by our program here, we try to involve speakers from other universities and other countries in dialogue around different issues that have relevance for our graduate program and our students and our faculty here, and try to connect people from around the world. My name is Juan Martinez, and I am a professor at that program, at the Letras program, the language and literature program here in the Federal University of Paraná, or UFPR. And I'm also the founder and director of the writing center here called Kappa, and I have a mug to prove it. There it is. And I am joined by two esteemed colleagues, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, from different parts of the world, who you'll learn more about very soon. That is Dr. Elena Bazanova, whose name is very easy to remember for Brazilians because it sounds a lot like bossa nova, but she's very lovely, just like the music. So Elena Bazanova from NUST MISI, the National University of Science and Technology in Moscow, and who's going to be talking a lot about the Russian Writing Center scenario and other things today. We're excited about that. And I'm also joined by the Regional English Language Officer in Brasilia, Jannifer Uhler. So she's attached to the US Embassy and Consulates, with whom I also have a couple of very interesting projects underway, and who has been hearing a lot about writing centers recently from Brazilians and in Brazil. And that brings me to what ties us all together today. The connection between all of us is that I am also an English language specialist, which means that through the United States Department of State's English language specialist program, I can sometimes be invited to consult on various English language projects in different parts of the world. And one project that came across Jannifer Uhler's desk not too long ago was one that Dr. Bazanova put together for writing program and writing center directors in Russia. And I had the honor of being invited to that project. And Dr. Bazanova will be talking to you more about that a little bit later, but basically it's a 10-month project. So it's a long-term project, which I hope turns into a long-term relationship between us, called Teaching Genre in the Writing Center. And the course involves a number of professors from different universities in Russia. Most of them are professors of English who also head writing centers and writing programs in their respective universities in Russia. And that leads us to our talk here today, because as you will be seeing very soon, writing centers started in the United States, but they have been growing outside North America more and more. And what has been driving that need has a lot to do with internationalization, and a lot of the people who have been invited to become part of this new trend are professors in language-related areas. And so that brings us back to why it's relevant to our postgraduate course here and why we're talking today. And there is another thing that Jannifer, Elena, and I have in common, which is that we are also language professors. We have TESOL backgrounds. And I have also learned recently through this contact with Jannifer, but especially in this project with Dr. Elena Bazanova, that a lot of the challenges and issues and drivers that have made writing centers more relevant recently in Russia are the exact same or very similar to what is happening here in Brazil. And so when this opportunity to give this webinar today came up through the invitation from my graduate program here, I thought, well, this is a great moment, a great chance to talk about these issues that are uncannily similar between Russia and Brazil, as you'll find out more later today. And so, irrespective of where you're watching this now, whether you are viewing this from Brazil, Russia, or from Indonesia, or from Germany, or from the United States even, you will find that there are probably a lot of issues that you have also encountered, and that together, collectively talking about these issues is a great way to build this dialogue and come to the realization that you're not alone, and we're building this kind of community of practice. And Jannifer Uhler can also testify, as she will later on, that in her capacity as a diplomat, and currently has a number of dealings with government ministries and other entities in the educational sphere here, that there is a lot of attention being drawn to the need for writing center or writing center help. And so this all kind of comes together nicely to hear the Russian perspective, my own local perspective, and a national perspective from Jannifer especially. And so I'm really honored to be able to share this space with Elena Bazanova and Jannifer Uhler here today, and with everybody here watching on YouTube, and we'll have a chance to interact with you soon. But for now, I would like to turn the microphone over to Dr. Elena Bazanova. Thank you, and take it away.
Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you for introducing me in such a fabulous way. I'm really privileged to be invited to such a grandiose webinar that is going to connect different countries, not only Russia, Brazil, and the USA and Indonesia, or whoever is watching us. And we have really a lot in common to speak about and to share and exchange experience. Let me show this screen. Okay, show my screen. That's it. Okay. Okay, so just a sec. In 2013, the Russian government launched Russian Academic Excellence Project 500. The goal of the project was to maximize the competitive position of leading Russian universities in the global research and education market, to increase research potential and global collaboration, to produce world-class intellectual products and educational programs, and integrate innovation in higher education and develop general and extracurricular education. Let me show you some statistics that can help you understand what the situation was in 2013 and what it looks like now in 2020. And intentionally, I decided to not only to show the situation in Russia, but in some other countries, including Brazil, in terms of publication activity and countries' productivity in terms of research outcome. The percentage of articles by country, and this data was, this information was taken from Web of Science co-collection. Russia is colored light blue, and Brazil is dark red, purple. And as you see, when the program started, there were very few publications in the co-collection, and Brazil lagged behind, we may say, yeah. But now the situation has changed, and Russia, I wouldn't say is leading. No, it's not leading, but we have made some efforts to improve the quality of publications. That is why on the one hand, it might seem that we decrease the number of publications that are indexed in Web of Science, but in fact, the quality of those publications has definitely increased. So that's another slide that shows citation-based research that help evaluate institutional productivity or country's productivity. And as you see, Russian citation data is marked yellow, and Brazil is dark red. Okay, we're in the same boat. We have very similar results in terms of citation-based research analysis. And one more slide to clarify the situation with the citations and what we need to do to improve, probably. That's the citation, the number of citations per article. And in Russia, we have quite a low index, and we have a lot to do to improve the situation, still a lot to do to improve the situation. And for the past 5 years, some leading Russian universities trying to implement their excellence initiatives aimed at getting into global rankings have established writing centers to help their teaching and research faculty acquire advanced academic literacy so that they could increase their publication outcomes and improve the quality of their research writing in English. The development of academic competence in English is a challenge that Russian universities now face. And there are many limitations that prevent us from taking advantage of those excellence initiatives and writing centers as their drivers. Thus, there's low awareness of academic writing in English as process, product, and practice. Lack of academic writing methodology, both in Russian and in English, a gap which exists in EAP-specific teacher qualifications, no tradition of academic writing across the curriculum, and writing in the disciplines, either in our native language in Russian or in English, differences, vivid differences between Russian and English rhetorical conventions, and negligibly small amount of writing centers across the country. To remove these limitations, we need to respond to some of the challenges. And as you see, the challenges are as follows. We need to raise awareness. Probably let's start, okay. We need to raise awareness of academic writing for research publications in higher education. And we need to develop understanding of writing center theory and pedagogy. We need to create professional development programs for writing center staff and build effective talent pipe recruitment and selection of tutors for writing centers. Okay. For this purpose, okay, sorry, just hit, oh, sorry. Yeah, for this purpose, as I said, some leading Russian universities established writing centers. Though these centers may differ, and that's the total amount of writing centers in Russia, though we have 664 universities, there are only 11 writing centers in Russia. Negligibly small number. And though these centers may differ in size and specific services, source of staffing, and organizational procedures, most of them map out various strategies like designing materials for EAP or English for research academic purposes, teaching and learning, establishing international and cross-institutional partnerships and collaborations, selecting and training tutors, developing services on translation, proofreading, and editing. And though Russian writing centers are seemingly different, we can identify their specificity, their specific features. And these are the specific features that unite all Russian writing centers. Thus, we all try to help PhD students, young scholars, teaching and research faculty reach their full potential and gain effective writing skills in English needed to continue professional development through their academic lives. We definitely design different courses organize seminars, trainings, workshops, summer schools tailored to the needs of PhD students, young scholars, all stakeholders, so that they could get published in prestigious international journals and build their working relationships with other scholars overseas, not only in Russia, and succeed in raising funds for their research. And definitely we'll try to train tutors who are devoted to the success of their tutees to help them compete for limited journal space with native speakers from some of the best universities in the English-speaking world. Our in-depth analysis of the existing models of writing centers indicated that there are at least 5 combinations of practices or recipes that could be associated with sustained success of writing centers. The hallmark of the first or EFL teachers-driven recipe is the active engagement of English language teachers as tutors. Writing centers following the second or product-focused recipe tend to hire native speakers of English to help the faculty and researchers with editing and proofreading of their scholarly publications. The third recipe that we metaphorically call motley crew includes writing tutors from different backgrounds, for example, applied linguists, researchers, subject matter specialists, whose role is to place a heavy emphasis on sharing expertise in research writing across disciplines and departments, not just a way to increase English language publication outcomes of the faculty and researchers. The fourth recipe is the internationalization core. This recipe can be found among universities that emphasize building international relations by involving international students, including postdoctoral students, as writing tutors. And finally, the fifth recipe, Berkey and Poller, employs collaborative efforts to help students not only improve their writing competencies, but also view their work in terms of a larger global conversation. To help those who need to acquire writing competencies, writing centers can choose to follow one of these recipes, each characterized by a distinct set of practices. Writing center leaders should identify the one that most closely matches their strategic aspirations. The trick then is to be truly great in a handful of practices rather than trying to master all of them altogether. Writing centers should choose their recipe and ingredients very carefully, as their own mix may leave the so-called bad taste in the mouths of the faculty as well as students, university executives, and the writing center staff alike. Building an effective writing center is extremely difficult. One-off institutional initiatives often bring only temporary benefits. Attempts to close every benchmark and best practice gap may also end in disappointment. Speaking about my center, I have chosen a combination of 2 recipes. I highlighted them red: motley crew and internationalization core. And later I will explain why I chose this particular recipes for the development of my writing center. Though the existing writing centers have chosen their recipes, they all lack relevant expertise. To gain their expertise, we needed to take action on the basis of vision and sincere motivation to do research on academic writing, to conduct nationwide debate and discussion, provide learning and professional development opportunities, and gain international experience and exchange. And in 2018, leading Russian experts decided to establish an association of academic writing experts to provide professional networking and professional development opportunities to writing center professionals and academic writing experts. The association aims to establish writing centers as drivers of change and innovation in the field of academic writing based on European expertise, and not only European, that's a misprint, US expertise, because there we find lots and lots of different writing centers. I know from my own experience that in all US universities, there are writing centers. In those universities that are even luckier, they have 2, 3, or even 4 writing centers on the campus of their university. So we aim to foster academic writing as a university discipline, that's important, and the higher education activity to promote academic writing by translingual writers across interdisciplinary audiences. And we also aim to achieve sustainable excellence in academic and scientific communication through dissemination of best practices and international standards in EAP and English for Research publication, teaching and tutoring pedagogy through the development of academic literacy and research skills at the university level and beyond. We also try to initiate projects for sharing expertise in EAP or ERPP, teaching and learning, to help researchers who are non-native speakers of English to get published in international peer-reviewed scholarly journals, indexed in Scopus and Web of Science. And we also aim to empower the nation's decision makers with the professional knowledge required to make well-informed choices, particularly on the development of academic writing standards for the Russian higher education system. Let me highlight some important milestones that have made a considerable impact on the development of academic writing expertise and the establishment of academic writing centers. So the project, as I said, this campaign, I'd say, nationwide campaign, started with the launch of this academic excellence program in 2013. And immediately afterwards, we had our first seminar on rhetoric and composition at New Economic School, the Writing and Communication Center, and US experts in academic writing, supported by the US Embassy, English language office at the US Embassy. And then we had our first tutor training programs, and Eve Smith, who was specialist working at Samara State University, she started the Samara Academic Consultancy Center in 2014. Afterwards, we had all Russia meeting to discuss writing center pedagogy. In those days, there were only 3 writing centers. The center was New Economic School, Higher School of Economics, and everyone knows Svetlana Suchkova, who is now leading that center, and my center at National University of Science and Technology, MISIS. Then we had an open educational resource on academic writing, again with the help of English Language Office and the US Embassy in Moscow, and the course was called Understanding Research and Academic Writing. Then 8 happy people were delegated to that was our IVLP program, Developing Academic Writing Centers, and thanks to Jerry Frank, who supported, initiated and supported this project. And we were delegated on behalf of Russian universities to visit stellar American universities, campuses and their writing centers at Harvard, MIT, Purdue, and we gained lots and lots and lots of experience and expertise. Afterwards, we launched an all-Russia science essay competition, and the competition involved over 70 young Russian junior researchers. And what is interesting is that the essays were peer-reviewed by tutors from leading American universities. That was great. So that's international collaboration. Our young researchers and peer review delivered by American tutors. And then it was high time we had established this association, and it started in 2018. Then afterwards, we had our first conference, Academic Writing in a Global World, New Challenges and Perspectives. And the conference aimed to promote a more systematic approach to writing-centered pedagogy and practice, and English for specific purposes, English for academic purposes, English for research purposes, tutor training, knowledge transfer, and exchange among writing centers, and consider various strategies to writing that can be employed. And we invited great speakers, and among those great speakers were Siduri, Christensen, and Robert Kater, and lots of sorry, other specialists from United States and from Great Britain and from Russian leading writing centers as well, and not only writing centers, Russian academic writing experts. Then we had some summer professional development schools. Participants explored a wide range of topics designed to help them develop writing, editing, and rewriting skills in English, as well as gain knowledge about journal publication processes. We have had two, so far we have had two summer schools. Definitely we organize different seminars, workshops, trainings, where participants have an opportunity to gain solid practical skills in academic writing. They develop their techniques, sharpen their critical faculties, discuss their work in small focused seminars, trainings, and workshops. Last year we had our second conference, Academic Writing in a Global World, New Challenges and Perspectives. And this time we invited Paul Matsuda and we invited Margaret Cargill to be our keynote speakers. Unfortunately, this year we were unable to organize the conference due to the pandemic, but we're planning to transfer this, reschedule this conference for next October probably. So cross fingers and touch wood. And certainly I have to, I'm just happy to mention this part of all of our activities, course delivered by Ron Martinez, and we all love the course, and it's a virtual English language specialist project, again, organized by the US Department of State and National Writing Centers Consortium. And the course is called Teaching Genre in the Writing Center. And it's a long-term project, and it's going to last for 8 till May. Yeah, till May. Yeah. What is okay? What are our strategic plans? What next? We need to develop training materials for seminars, webinars, master classes. We need to kind of saturate the atmosphere with all this material so that everyone has access to this, to what we design within all the activities by the National Association of Academic Writing Experts. We organize all Russia annual conferences for the purpose of disseminating research and promoting innovation and teaching and academic writing. We need to conduct nationwide surveys to obtain relevant data related to key issues and principles that are to inform the design and facilitation of academic writing programs. We need to foster academic writing both in English and in Russian as a compulsory discipline for all university degrees. These days we don't have academic writing as a compulsory discipline, which is a great pity, because we need to start really early at the undergraduate level to teach academic writing, so that within the course of their studies students have a chance to master their academic writing skills, to get published in high-ranked international publications. And certainly we're willing to establish global professional relationships with English language practitioners, experts, academics, and other educators to share experience and expertise in pedagogy for writing centers and teaching academic writing. I cannot help sharing sharing my experience, and I'm happy that I have a chance to speak about my writing center. It was established in 2015, and the mission of my academic writing center, officially it's called Academic Writing Office, helps PhD students and junior researchers reach their full potential, gain scholarly communication skills needed to continue professional development through their academic lives. The office was created to contribute to the implementation of the Russian Academic Excellence Project, and it was tasked to establish a portfolio of university programs and intellectual products, ensuring international competitiveness of my university. So far, we've done a lot. And as I said, I have selected two recipes for my activities: Motley Crew and internationalization core, because I believe that, though I am a language teacher myself, I believe that subject matter experts, those who have very good level of English, high level of English, and knowing their subject matter, they can help much more than English language teacher probably can. Why so? Because researchers, and we work with researchers, we work with sometimes mature researchers who also need to master their writing skills in English. They do not always trust English language teachers when we attempt to help them with their writing. And so when we have experts in the field, they say, okay, you know the content, you can give some very valuable advice how to improve the content of our publications. And besides, they're more involved in the process of writing. And as you know, when you teach, you understand more what you teach. And so when they teach, when they educate other researchers how to publish, how to write, they clarify their understanding of what they themselves need to develop. And so far we have developed 6 courses, and we conduct different workshops and lectures. And for 5 years, we have taught more than 1,350 participants. We have more than 1,900 consulting sessions. And by consulting sessions, I don't mean short-term consulting sessions, because a consulting session can last for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, or sometimes a day, if that's exchange of remarks and the comments. It's not just a 30-minute consultation, because it never helps. Usually researchers, when they do come to my center, they bring their final, as they think, final draft of their manuscript, and they say, okay, help me improve it. Yeah, and then I cannot just help them with their abstract, only abstract. Yeah, so I have the whole lot, and I need to work with the whole paper, okay, following the logic of the thoughts, of the structure, and it takes hours, not minutes. And so far we have reviewed 4,500 pages of research publications, and we have accumulated great library resources, and we adopt these key practices. We are committed to these key practices. We give intensive courses tailored to the needs of the researchers. So courses, I may say, on demand, okay? If you have a demand, if you need very specific skill to improve, so we design a course. We're very flexible in my center because we're not integrated in the curriculum. So in the process. And so we may have a short-term course, a long-term course, and we can organize whatever course is necessary for this very specific need. And we make ourselves available and accessible through in-person consulting sessions, and we provide regular training for tutors. And as I said, I don't mean by tutors, I never mean English language teachers. I mean researchers themselves, those who are willing to help others. So I select those who have had lots of courses on academic writing for research publication purposes, and they know the mechanics, the specifics of writing in English, and their level is quite high, and they know the content. And I also involve, I may say, engage postdoctoral students as tutors because they have international experience. They have publications in international journals, and they help much more than me when I work with manuscripts and whatever genres I need to deal with as I also call myself as a tutor, okay, as a tutor, because I work as a tutor, I work as an instructor, not only a director, yeah. So I have different roles. I'm a director of the center, I'm a tutor, I'm lecturer, I'm professor, I'm manager, whatever, yeah. So that's the center. What can we do next? I have designed this kind of matrix from planning to action, professional development matrix for academic writing centers. And in this slide, you can see professional areas of professional competence or skills that we need to acquire. So we need to acquire critical knowledge, we need to manage knowledge transfer, we need to analyze problems and find solutions, we need to deliver service improvements, we need to effectively monitor and control the process, we need to lead those who are willing to join our association and this campaign all over Russia. Definitely we need to gain and plan and deploy resources that we develop ourselves or accumulate, and definitely we need to strategically plan all our activities. And in this slide you see how association can support writing centers, what writing centers can do, and where they can be engaged or involved, what tutors and instructors can do just to contribute to this activity, what projects can be designed, created, delivered, what support we need in terms of research, because we need to do research, and we also as academic writing experts, we publish our findings, we analyze and publish, and we do research and we publish our findings, and what we can do to successfully plan all our activities. And that's it, briefly speaking. Okay, I hope I was not too long. No? Okay.
Thank you very much, Elena. And we already have some questions for you.
Okay.
And I actually have a few myself. My first question is very important, which is, did I miss your birthday recently?
My birthday?
Yeah.
On the 5th of September.
Okay, it was a while back. Because I looked at the National Writing Center Consortium's webpage, and
Okay.
that they had wished you happy birthday, and I thought, oh, I should have done that back then.
Okay, so the thing is that, okay, as you see, there are only 11 writing centers in Russia, and not many people work in the association, and we don't have so many helping hands to update all the news that we have. Yeah.
No, I can totally relate to that. I've been in the same boat. But I also wanted to ask you something related to the National Writing Center Consortium in Russia, which is, you know, I wonder if you would consider, now that we have this bridge with Brazil, making it, instead of an NWCC, making it an IWCC, an International Writing Center Consortium.
That would be great. That's a dream. Yeah. And I guess since we do the same things, exactly the same things, you also need to establish writing centers, I mean, within the country, okay, Brazil, and students and researchers and teaching staff and research faculty, everyone needs to get published. That's the reality we have to cope with, okay? If you want to be involved in the academic process, we have to get published, and we need to know how, okay? We need to increase publications so that we could be heard internationally, globally, okay? Because if we write only in Russian, we're heard in Russian. That's it, okay? So if we want to contribute, if we want to participate in international collaborations, if we want to get involved in this dialogue, so we need to use English, whether we like it or not, okay? And why not? Latin used to be the international language, yeah, years and years ago. Then in Russia we had French, and then we switched to English. Who knows? Probably one day it will be Spanish or Portuguese or Russian or any other language. So that's the reality we have to cope with, and that is why we need to teach everyone so English, so that we could communicate freely and express all our thoughts, ideas, and share our research findings, how to improve not only science but education, life globally. Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually had a question regarding that language point, and it kind of ties in with another comment that I had about how you mentioned how so many writing centers exist in the United States. As you say, basically every university in the United States has a writing center. And I think it's one of the things that we've done right in American universities, is that I think we've done a good job of promoting and supporting writing practices in the United States context. And it's interesting how that idea really didn't take off elsewhere for a number of reasons until more recently, but because of internationalization. And so this leads me to the point about language. Even though we have adopted a kind of practice that began in the North American context, North American higher education context, I wonder, to what extent do you feel that there's a certain hybridity that we're creating here? Because I often feel that I have in my context at CAPA, at the local writing center here, I have more in common with writing center directors in Russia, in Indonesia, in Mexico, in Argentina, than I do with writing center directors in the United States. Because even though we're taking something, an idea that was born there, we're kind of mixing it all together to make our own, special sauce. And so with that in mind, with that idea of, first of all, to what extent do you think that we are creating our own kind of hybrid practice with writing centers outside of the United States? Also, to what extent do you think that those writing centers are specifically attached to a particular language? So, obviously, English is a huge driver of people to go to the writing center to begin with. But what about other languages? So, in Brazil, obviously Spanish, we're in the South, is an important language, and in other countries too, there are other languages that can contribute or are obviously part of internationalization. I'd like you, if you could comment on those two things. One is, to what extent do you think that we're creating a kind of our own special brand of writing centers in non-US context? And to what extent is English language, the monopoly there?
So certainly, we are creating just hybrid version of American standards, because they never encountered this problem of teaching, for example, teaching Russian to American students who can write in Russian. So that's their native language, and all their tutors are those who can speak English fluently, okay? Either it is their native language and that's why they're fluent in English, or the level of English is really high and they can help. So in the context of Russian writing centers and I guess Brazilian Russian writing centers, so we need to find those tutors whose English is up to level so that we help them write in English. But the thing is, whether we should ignore our own language, native language, or should we switch entirely to so English? In fact, I think that both academic languages, okay, I mean Russian academic language and English academic language should be taught, because if we do not know how to write research papers in Russian, it is very difficult to sometimes to write in English, because there should be some logic. And that is why, knowing this, I decided that I need to learn rhetoric, because rhetoric as a subject is almost never taught in Russia. Okay, by rhetoric, we in most cases mean some pathetic modus, okay? So associated with poetry, yeah, or prose, not with academic writing. So I decided to that I need to know more about rhetoric, and that's why I did a rhetoric course at Harvard University, just to know what it is and how to teach rhetoric. And then I found out that not many people know what rhetoric is. And that's not a question of English, that's the question of any language, because rhetoric is the logic, yeah, per se. And that is why, okay, English as a language of communication tool is a great communication tool. So you need this to be able to speak to other nations, other people, other countries, whoever is involved in your life, yeah. But we also need to teach our students and researchers, all stakeholders, Russian writing, how to write in the native language, yeah, because it is different. And I do not know why, it's just probably a tradition, but Russian academic writing is not taught as a discipline. And so in most cases, because I've been teaching for more than 30 years in a technical university, in 2 technical universities, and in one of the universities, the other one where I work, the first writing work that they have to write, so they have to write only when they are in the 4th year of their undergraduate studies. So that's the final paper, okay? So for 4 years, they do not have a chance or necessity just to write anything. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they say, okay, now you have to write your undergraduate paper. They say, how?
Yeah,
and
and
so,
this is a point that, I mean, people here watching from Brazil will totally be nodding right now, I can imagine, because it's exactly the same thing here. Writing, the process of writing and thinking about genre, really at the moment happens, there's a spike when students have to enter university through a national exam. They call it ENEM, where they do basically what, if you watch a talk recently with Dr. Tellen Phillips from Ohio University, she called the 5-paragraph essay a fake genre. And that's really what they do. They kind of learn this kind of formula of a 5-paragraph essay to get into, to do well and try to do well in that national exam. And then, as you say, they kind of forget about writing
absolutely,
for the rest of the course, rest of their degree, until they get to their last year at university and undergrad, where they have something called TCC, which is Trabalho de Conclusão de Curso, it's kind of a capstone project, or what they call monografia, a kind of monography. This is their big writing thing. And as you say, it's sort of like, okay, it's almost as if they feel like they have to snap their fingers, and suddenly they become writers at the fourth year. And then many of them report feeling, shame or guilt that they haven't learned, that they're not writing well. And then they'll even have professors who will say, your writing is not very good. Well, I mean, they haven't had a chance to work on their writing until they got to their last year of school. And it's actually kind of sad that I think that many of the students that I've taught in the undergraduate level in the English degree course report that they never had any particular focus on writing, reflection on writing, critical thinking about their own writing, until they actually took the writing course, we call it Escrita 2, 3, 4 at our university, until they took the course in English. And you think, well, there might be some nice transfer there, but at the same time, it should be occurring in their own language too. So, we can, I feel like probably what you just described and what I'm describing is not limited to Russia and Brazil alone, but I'm sure is something that a lot of countries have gone through.
Yeah, that's a global problem, and they feel disappointed, and sometimes they feel kind of cheated, okay, because they do not have any support in writing, and then they say, okay, go and write. Yeah, and they need to take all the responsibility for the writing process.
Yeah, and we have some comments in the chat here, people saying the same thing in Mexico, the same thing in Kyrgyzstan. I mean, it's something that is everywhere.
That's a global issue, okay?
Yeah. And so it's interesting that the Writing Center is kind of occupying a space there that may eventually develop into what you described earlier as, who knows, more awareness of writing across the curriculum, writing in the disciplines, et cetera. And before we get lost in this very engaging discussion, now I'm quite aware that Jennifer is probably chomping at the bit here to kind of chime in, because she brings her own perspective. I'm talking about something sort of more local. I'm very much aware of the Universidade Federal de Paraná, Federal University of Paraná level things, statewide issues. But Jennifer's more plugged into the national scene, especially since she's tied to sort of Ministry of Education and government entities in Brazil in her role as a diplomat, basically, for in the international office, the regional English language office at the embassy. So I'd like to bring in her perspective too on all this here. Hi, Jennifer, can you?
Sure. Good evening, and dobry večer again. Thank you, Elena, for so many good thoughts. I was taking notes while I was listening to you and thinking about how connected we are. There's so much connection in this space in higher education, but really throughout the entire education system. And so as a person who's passionate about empowering teachers and empowering learners, writing is certainly one of those important ways to empower people to be connected in science, but also to be able to reach out to one another. So in my current position at the United States Embassy, I work with the US Embassy and consulates in Brazil and focus on the region of Brazil, which as people here know is not a country, it's like 27 countries all in one. It's a very enormous space with a lot of diversity. And so I've had the pleasure of learning a lot about this context in the last 2 years. And although my office works with different parts of education, we work with basic education as well as higher education. When I listen to Brazilian academics or Brazilian students talking about needs in higher education, there are 3 terms that are going to come up without any doubt in every conversation on a daily basis. And those are internationalization, which can mean many, many things. English as a medium of instruction, so teaching more subjects in English here in Brazil. Oftentimes Brazilian educators teaching engineering, mathematics, whatever the subject is, to Brazilian students, because there aren't as many international students here in Brazil as we might like to see. And without a doubt, the third topic that's going to come up is academic writing. And people mean a lot of different things about that. And I appreciated, Elena, how you talked about this, the right recipe and the special sauce, Ron, and kind of figuring out what the right mix is for a particular institution. Because certainly, I don't think a one-size-fits-all approach will work here in Brazil with the kind of diversity that I've just mentioned. But certainly universities talking about integrating writing, sometimes with this English as a medium of instruction a bit that's happening on the side, and often as a completely separate exercise focused on second or additional language writing, meaning English in this case. Most of the conversations I have are not centered around writing in Portuguese, but it's definitely related in some sort of external writing center like the one at the Federal University in Paraná, which does have a combination of language, or other universities that are just kind of tiptoeing into the area. And so it's fascinating to see those topics come up over and over and over again, not only here, but in my career as a diplomat. So my background is also in English language teaching. I was a specialist and I've been an English language fellow, and I'm very passionate about connecting people in these international spaces. And so prior to being in Brazil as a regional English language officer, I worked in Washington, DC, also in Indonesia and East Timor, and in Central Asia, covering Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan. And before that, I was a person who taught in universities outside of the United States. And one common thread that I can weave in my whole career are often top-down decisions that I think Elena was talking about, that are focused either on a changing demographic of students or on a need to publish and publish now and publish in index journals, and a lack of acknowledgement that that requires a whole system that works towards that moment, and it's not a quick fix. And so what I love about the conversation that's happening here in Brazil is there's an acknowledgement that, okay, writing is going to be important. English is definitely a pretext for a conversation about writing that I think sometimes extends into the sphere of also writing in Portuguese or whatever the native language of students are. But I think eventually also has some washback on the secondary system, on basic school, where if you're going to be a prepared writer and you know you need writing in higher education or to be successful in a scientific track, you need to start earlier. And so I see this interest in writing as a buzzword in my daily work. In the last 6 months, we've done numerous projects on English as a medium of instruction connected with writing. We have an ongoing writing center series right now together with the Federal University in Paraná, but it has national reach, trying to build a community of practice with different aspects of writing centers, with specialists, many of whom have also worked in Russia and in other countries, talking about how you can conceptualize a writing center and what that might look like in different spaces, how you might remix it to have a motley crew or an internationalization mix in different places. In fact, there'll be a webinar today at 5 p.m. Brazilian time with Sidori Christensen, who I know did work in Russia as well. In addition to that, we have some work we've been doing with the secondary school learners, many of whom are looking to apply for competitive scholarships or study abroad, and building a writing resource center that at this moment is really focused on like the high school writer or the early undergraduate college writer. But there's tons of need. And so this is an important topic, I think, to be discussing because it brings us all together. So back to that aspect of connection. I know the three of us are very connected, and there are a lot of ways we can connect our wider worlds through writing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's this focus right now, as you say, is sort of international publication as a big driver. But right now, I think, you know, the writing center here locally, we're pretty well established as a writing center in terms of the university administration likes us. They're on board with what we do. They're clear about the function that we serve. But I think it's now time that I would like to to reach out. It's part of our strategic plan now at CAPA to reach out to non-publishing genres as well. So the more so-called occluded genres too, that include the ones that I mentioned at the university, the undergraduate level. I think it was important to establish, to kind of make our home at the beginning where the quote unquote money was, where they're to get the institution on board. But now that it's on board, I think it's important to reach out to talk about writing practices across the board. I don't know if you feel that way too, Elena.
Yeah, definitely. So we cannot start from the end. We need to start from the beginning. Okay, and the beginning is probably starts at school level, but I'm not speaking about school education because that's not my cup of tea. But speaking about higher education, we need to focus on undergraduate students from the very beginning, from the first day of their university life. And that is why just one of the aims of the association is to introduce first year writing as a compulsory discipline. So we need to teach them how to write, no matter what. It can be creative writing, it can be CV writing, it can be just personal communication. We need just to teach them how to communicate. So, and that's the question, not only about writing, but about communication per se. Any type of communication. Writing center, though it is called writing center, and some Russian universities, they call their writing centers writing center and communication center, okay, writing and communication center, focusing on this aspect of communication, oral communication as well. So we need to teach them not only how to write a research paper that's creme de la creme, it comes at the peak of their career. So we need to get them to love writing as an activity, because that's the logic of the language, that's the logic of structured way of thinking. And only writing, as there's the phrase, writing is thought made visible. Okay, so if you want to see your thoughts, you need to put them on paper, and we need to teach them how to catch those great thoughts that our students may have and put them on paper. And that's not only research writing, that's just any writing, okay, starting from the basis, writing 5-paragraph essay, but people are, I guess they're sick and tired of this 5-paragraph essay, because life, that's not the end of life, okay, 5-paragraph essay. Just whatever writing is possible to be taught, should be taught, but at the very beginning of university life of all our students, okay? And then probably I always just tell my colleagues and my students that I want to live till the day when my job as a language teacher is not needed, okay? When you learn how to speak in English, write in English, or just express yourselves in your native language or English, then though I might lose my job, but that will be the climax of my career, okay? So we need to teach them, undergraduate students, in such a way that they probably do not need our services as a center where they can get help with their research writing, because they need to be independent, yeah? Afterwards, when they get published, they participate in international conferences, yeah? And we cannot accompany them, yeah, as a tutor or a language teacher. So they need to be independent. They need to know how to communicate across the globe, yeah? But for this purpose, they need to know how to communicate orally or in written form.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important point, is that at the Writing Center, we call it writing, but we also focus on other oral academic genres as well. In fact, just the very fact that we bring people into the Writing Center to talk about their research, it's actually focusing on orality first before we do the writing, or as an integral part of the writing process. And that brings me to a point that a couple of people are raising in the chat room, because a couple of the participants have voiced a concern that, to what extent is there a kind of epistemicide happening here, where you have learners, the students I referred to earlier, reporting that they're learning to write for the first time, having critical reflection on their writing through a class in English. What sort of effect does that have on their own view of their writing in Portuguese? Perhaps risking the perception that the writing in their own language in Portuguese is inferior, and you do have that happening with. In fact, there's evidence that Brazilians avoid citing their published colleagues in international journals because they feel like it will somehow weaken their chances of getting published. And so this is a real thing. I do think, though, that with our role as writing centers, we can affect positive change in that regard. But as Jannifer mentioned, the pretext is English, and it's very usefully so. And it brings me back to something that happened. I remember a couple of years ago when I was teaching on a faculty development course for English as a medium of instruction, professors mostly from my university here. And many of the professors on that course, so these were professors who were planning on delivering their courses in English and wanted to have some kind of preparation. In that course, I never focus on English language per se, because I think that's kind of, if you feel that your English is good enough, then go for it, then try it. I was focusing more on critical reflection of one's own pedagogy. And so there was a lot of talk in that course, teachers talking about how they teach and what does good practice mean and all of that. And so a couple of the professors, I remember one particular course, they said, this is not a course about English as a medium of instruction. This is a course about instruction per se. And this is the first time that I've actually sat down and talked to other colleagues about my teaching. This is the first time I've sat down and thought about what should go into a lesson plan and why. And so in that same room at that moment, there was an administrator, a university administrator of the postgraduate program. And so one of the professor participants said to this administrator, said, "Hey, you, why don't we offer a course like this in Portuguese?" And then somebody else said, "Well, actually we do, but you just don't know about it." And then the administrator also said, "Well, compare the number of participants, because we had over 200 people interested in that course, that want to take this course versus the one in Portuguese." That doesn't diminish wanting to do that in Portuguese, but what it does is it shows that people think, oh, there's nothing special about me taking a course in teaching in Portuguese because I do that already, and they think so. Fine, I do anything, but doing so in English forced them to kind of shake up. It gives them a little shake in terms of, okay, maybe I can rethink things, and maybe that shaking up then provokes some kind of critical reflection that may be healthy, that they bring back. And there's more research that shows this, that even though that course was about EMI, they actually then went back to the courses that they taught in Portuguese and thought, let me see if there's another way that I can engage my students on a different level. Let's see if I can invite more student participation. Not to say that meant it superior, what they were doing before was wrong, but it made them think critically about their own practice. And that, I think, is a healthy thing. And so yes, as Jannifer said, English is the pretext, but just like in the Writing Center, English is also the pretext, but it also means that pretext can be a healthy thing, because at our Writing Center here, the people who come in, they don't come in and have conversation in English. They come in and they talk in Portuguese about their writing in Portuguese. Yes, the final destination is English. But another thing that's important, and this is something that we've discussed among the Writing Center staff, is they have to also be critically aware of their role as agents in this potential epistemicide. That when they're advising their writers on how to improve their writing and shape their writing, that they shouldn't say, okay, now make your writing the way that, shape it the same way that they would write it in whatever, at Harvard, or the same way they would do it at Oxford. No, they're saying, think that the tutors have to be aware that any changes as they suggest may involve conforming to an international expectations of the genre, but that doesn't mean that the way they form, the Brazilians, shape their discourse is in any way inferior or wrong. It's just that they're playing a kind of publication game. The other thing I should mention, this is something that Elena, you touched on, is that more and more the international community are taking their own stakes in this international game, right? And so whereas 20 years ago, the first authors on international publications were in the vast majority from American or Western European universities, what you have now is you have a plethora of diversity of people who are first authors in English medium journals, but who then bring their own thinking, their own shaping, their own way of forming the linguistic and discourse level parts of writing. And what research kind of unanimously shows is that linguistic aspects per se are far less important than the merits of the research per se when it comes time to publishing. And so my own research shows that the English language itself in English medium and publications is being shaped by this international community of scholars. It's not like there's this bubble. And no, because the people who are writing those articles are from a plethora of different countries who have their own discourses, and the ones who are therefore reviewing the manuscripts, because remember, if you submit a manuscript and it's published, that also means that you're likely to be called on as a reviewer. Those who are reviewing the manuscripts are also from that international community. And so the monolith, the monopoly that was once is now cracking at the seams. And I think that's a healthy thing. And so that pretext, this English language pretext, is one that for now is useful to bring people into the Writing Center, but hopefully, and as is the case at CAPA, we constantly try to reinforce our identity as, hey, yes, we do help you with your English language manuscripts, but we are all about talking about writing, period, irrespective of the language in which it's written, developing authorship. Do you guys have any comments on that?
I do. Actually, Ron, as you were talking, I was thinking about the very spirit of internationalization is about re-examining practices, about being shaken up. And so I know we all work in this international sphere, but programs that we work with from the U.S. Embassy and consulates, like Fulbright or the English Language Specialist Program or the Fulbright Program, they work on all sides to kind of be confronted with something that is slightly different, whether it's writing or an interaction or being in another place or virtually connecting with other people. And as a result, rechecking what it is that we're examining. And I think although we're talking about English specifically here, because that's the world that we work in, and it's true for courses I taught in a previous life that were EMI courses for faculty, I could say exactly the same thing. Ron, you could have been speaking for me. Also about writing work that I've done, about it having a reflection of like, wait a minute, this thing I do that I've been doing for 20 years, maybe it should be a little bit different based on this experience that I've just had, but it happens in reverse too. So I know for our scholars that come here to Brazil, for example, or my own experiences as I will not use the term polyglot because I don't like it and I don't think it's accurate, but as a learner of 8 languages, I can say that my experiences in that language often make me more willing to experiment with topics or activities that I don't want to do in English. I have no interest in doing in my native language, but by encountering them, it causes me to go back and check that assumption. I can tell you that my Portuguese language instruction, I have had a couple of really strict instructors since I've been here, has forced me to re-examine my beliefs and do some critical thinking that, quite frankly, I would not accept that sort of dialogue or criticism in English. And so I think that's one of the very special places that we work. And I've always felt that way, not about English language teaching, but about foreign language teaching. It's a very precious space because we can bring people together to talk about things and do things that aren't part of our daily lives. And it is a pretext, and that's really precious. And it pervades the everyday work that we do in public affairs at the U.S. Embassy and Consulate and in the Regional English Language Office. So it's good to hear that echoed, and it's been a really good reminder for me this morning.
Yeah, Elena, you obviously work in a writing center in which English is also very, very important. Do you feel that you're having an effect on the writing practices in Russian as well?
Certainly, because so speaking about writing as a process, I cannot help speaking about writing in Russian as well. So speaking about the way writing is, I may say, created, because that's process of creation. And so writing in any language is very similar. You have to in the first place, you have to express yourself. You need to know what you want to say or write. And that's not a question of English, or that's not a question of Russian. When I teach English for research publication purposes or any other purposes, okay, specific purposes or whatever, I cannot help speaking about the native language. We speak about Russian and the differences, if any. Yeah, but I also wanted to mention the fact that in my writing center, I always welcome international students. Why so? Because international students, they make a difference, huge difference to the whole process of writing or communication. And then Russian students, they understand that their English does not have to be, okay, the English of Elizabeth II, okay? It has to be international because they need to be understood. They need to be understood, and that's the way they need to write. And they write for broader audience. And luckily at my university, we have different disciplines. Okay, it can be metallurgy and mining and physics and 3D modeling, material science. And I always have, when I deliver a course on academic writing, I always have students from different disciplines. That's my main primary concern, okay? Not just one discipline, not discipline-specific course. The more disciplines I have in one class, the better, because sometimes I have even linguists and philologists in my class. Okay, and so I have physicists, chemists, linguists, material science specialists, and then they realize how difficult it is to express their thoughts in a simple way so that everyone understands. And that's not about English, that's about just being able to express themselves. Yeah, that's the question of, again, communication and understanding between different disciplines and different nations and different conventions or different differences. Okay, let's call it this way. Yeah, and English, yeah, there are lots of Englishes, and we know this. And not long ago, I was conducting some research. I wanted to find out what the aims and scope of different journals are. Okay, and I selected different journals: low impact factor, high impact factor, physics or chemistry, all disciplines. Yeah, and what I found out that, for example, journal Physics Review, Physics Reports, high impact factor, 25 something impact factor, very high, and they just they write, we accept papers, though it is just purely physics, but we accept papers that can be understood by specialists, non-specialists, lecturers, teachers, policymakers, students, okay? And that's not about English. That's about the way we speak and we write about what we do. It can be science, it can be education, anything, okay? And that's the question of language, okay? Not specific language, just language and speech.
Now, you're the co-founder of the National Writing Center Consortium in Russia.
Yeah.
Now, you outlined a little bit of this during your talk, but how has the growth been since you started? I mean, do you feel like it's really taking off? What do you see the direction being?
Slowly but steadily, it's taking off, but really slowly. Why so? So the thing is that most universities, they consider it as a very expensive practice. I'm lucky because I have selected the motley crew as best practice. I don't pay to my tutors. They just take this privilege to work as tutors, yeah? And that is why I don't spend my funds on paying any money to do their tutoring jobs.
Why do you have so many such a great motley crew? How do you draw so many people to be volunteers?
Probably because when I started this activity, no one expected anything great. And then they were curious, then they got involved and they say, okay, we can also deliver academic writing courses to our students, undergraduate students. And now those who had who took my courses, they are now academic writing teachers, okay, though they have no pedagogical education, yeah, and they got involved because we all love teaching, okay, no matter whether we're teachers or not teachers, okay, we have children, we have younger relatives, and it's just our nature of a human to teach. And I found out that people love giving instructions and teaching and educating. So probably they love this status of being respected and heard. I do not know why. And probably because of my nature, because my job is just to inspire. Okay, when I inspire, they do their job for me. Yeah. Probably this, yeah, and for them it was something brand new. Okay, they did research, they taught their subjects, and then they realized that they can do something different. They can teach academic writing for research publication purposes, and so that's prestigious.
Yeah, it's interesting. That is consistent with my own experience here as well. Where there's this there are these very special people who are irrespective of whatever discipline they might be in, they have an affinity for writing. They're proud of their writing. They have this artisanal quality about themselves with respect to their writing. And these are little, special gems. These are people that really, they're so highly engaged with the writing center. They really are really great people and rare finds. But this actually leads me to a similar question for Jannifer, because it seems that when you hit the ground here in Brazil as the Rio officer, it seems that you kind of noticed right away that there was interest in writing. Is that right?
Well, I don't know if I hit the ground running, but I think I met you very soon after I arrived, Ron, so that probably helped. I think what happens when you arrive in a new context as a regional English language officer is you're suddenly introduced to all kinds of people. And it's a reset moment, if you will, because I'm now, I've been in Brazil for over 2 years. I know lots of people, and we've had multiple conversations. So there's not the same opportunity to present someone new with a like, this is what we're interested in. But when you arrive, you're meeting everybody for the first time. And I think you have less preconceived notions. So you're also very openly saying, what's going on here? Oh, is this the same or is this different than what was going on in whatever context I was working in before? I now am at that dangerous point, I think, of entering new places and making assumptions like, this was true here and here and here and here. It probably is true here. But I think when you enter with an open mind and you meet enough people who say the same thing, you're like, okay, well, we better move on that. Because I think as Elena demonstrated through her explanation of the development of this writing center, I'm going to call it a movement in Russia, it's not something that happens overnight. You have to find space for it and space in the conversation for it. And so that momentum was already here in Brazil. And with the resources that I have from the US Embassy, everything takes a while to kind of position. And I think some of the work we're doing together in Paraná and work that's being done in other places in Brazil is a result of acting on both that input, but also a sense of intuition with the same keywords coming up, that writing is going to be part of that. And a good way to attack writing, in a sense, is to create a space for it in the university conversation. And that may not be happening curricularly, as you've both mentioned. So I don't know if I was a fast study or I was just lucky in meeting the right people when I arrived, and then moving forward with some of the things that I was hearing.
I think we were all lucky to have you here. Now, to wind this all up, because we're running out of time here, I'd like to ask you both the same question, which is, what does the road ahead look like? What do you see, how do you see all this unfolding in the near and maybe long-term future? I mean, I'm asking you to, develop a special sense to divine what's happening in the future, but if you could put on, your goggles to see into the future, what do you think is happening? We'll start with Jannifer, and then we'll wrap it up with Elena.
Darn, I was hoping for an extra moment to think.
Okay, okay, that's good. Okay, well,
but I can start. So,
okay.
If I look into the future here in Brazil, I see a growing interest in internationalization that will not be diminished. It's only going to increase. And the necessity to write, I think there's a rabid interest in my conversations with some of the associations of state and federal universities, with conversations with organizations like FAUBAI. I think there's more and more understanding that writing requires support, and writing centers also require support, whether it's enthusiasm, passion, or resources, all of which are necessary. I think that there'll be a growing sense of awareness. And I see projects like the one, so in Paraná, we're kind of starting a network with the state and federal universities together with Ron, but supported by the US Consulate in Sao Paulo and by SETI to kind of coach the emergence of writing centers at multiple institutions, or maybe parallel types of writing, academic writing activities that could take different formats. And I see that as a kind of a potential catalyst or a model that might be replicated in other parts of the country by other states, or maybe at a national level. But sometimes I think you have to build something so that people can see it and experience it before they're ready to jump in. And so I think the excellence that is displayed at CAPA, at the Federal University in Paraná, has been a great example for many universities who look over and say, I want one of those. I think that would be good here too. I have no idea what the path is to get there. But I think as that path becomes more worn, it goes from being like some little cow path in the pasture to being a sidewalk or maybe a highway. There'll be more and more people joining. And so I think some of the public activities like this webinar, like the webinar series that is happening, conversations at lots of universities and associations, I think interest will grow and a community will grow. So it's great to see the community of practice on the Facebook page, for example. So I see all these as net positive, and a lot of demand probably for specialists like those that you've mentioned to help institutions plant these, because I think often You need help planting the seed, and then everybody has to join in watering it. And I'm just mixing as many metaphors as I can at the beginning of this, at the end of this talk. But I see a good future, maybe not an easy one in all places, but one that's a more common path, and where there are more people to join you in community along the way, here in Brazil and probably internationally as well.
I couldn't have said it better. And thanks once again, Jannifer, for being to take advantage of the metaphor that you brought, for being some of that sunshine and water that has helped water that made that seed flourish. And so now I'll turn it over to Dr. Elena Bazanova for the last word on that same topic.
It's difficult to find better words than Jannifer said. Just I may say that just in my opinion, and I strongly believe that writing centers should be established in all universities, not in Russia, but globally, because they're the places where communication starts. And we need to teach people how to communicate, and that's the only way to save the world and to keep peace. Yeah, because it is all about communication, not politics, not ideology. We need just to be able to learn how to write effectively, how to speak effectively, so that we can express our thoughts and we can be understood. That's the question. And writing centers, they're the best places where these can be practiced. And I know it's a long process. Okay, it might take another 5 years to create writing centers in another 11 universities in Russia, but I never lose hope. We try our best, and we need to introduce writing and communication as first year writing, or probably second year writing, all through the educational process writing. So and we need not only establish writing centers in Brazil and Russia, we need to establish this collaboration between different nations. And that's a great idea, just to establish international or Russian Brazilian or Russian Indonesian. It doesn't matter what, okay, international, cross-continental, cross-Atlantic association of writing centers, just to support, because we know something that you do not know, and vice versa. And we can exchange this expertise, we can exchange our experience, we can share a lot. And we need this, how does it, just kind of well, yeah, with fresh water that we can just all drink, yeah. And we need to feel this resource, okay, all together, not just locally, but internationally, globally, so that we speak the same language. I don't mean English, just the same language. Yeah.
I love it. And on that note, I want to say that you have all seen it right here, folks. Those of you who are watching right now, this is the moment in which the International Writing Center Consortium was given birth, right here. Thank you, spasiba to everybody there in Russia. Obrigado here, everybody here in Brazil. Gracias to those in Mexico and all the other languages I don't have time to learn at this moment. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and especially to Jannifer and Elena for sharing this moment, which is so important to talk about what we, especially, you know, the little differences that we have, but especially what we have in common. Because we have so much to share, and I hope that we get to share those thoughts again in the future. Thank you so much for being with us today.
And thank you, Ron, for inviting us, and me in particular, to speak on behalf of Russia and the association and all the writing experts, okay, here in Russia. That's great.
No, it's also been a pleasure. Thanks, Ron, and thanks, Elena. I've enjoyed this conversation immensely.
Me too, yeah.
And I'm aware that due to various time zones, including the 11 time zones in Russia, and people who are in India and other places that are interested in this, but weren't able to stay up late to watch this video will be available on the Writing Centers of Brazil group page, as well as the PPG Letras YouTube channel. So if you want to watch it any other time, it'll be available there. And as a reminder, I will be around again later on today. Those of you who are still not sick of me, and Jannifer too, will make an appearance for the 5 p.m. Brazil time webinar about nurturing 2 languages in the context of a writing center with Siduri Christensen. So stay tuned. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, guys, that's it.